The Guild is Maximum Lawyers' community of legal entrepreneurs who are taking their businesses and lives to the next level. As a Guild member, you'll build relationships, be held accountable, and learn strategies specifically designed to get you unstuck and accelerate your plan for growth. Members are also granted exclusive access to masterminds hosted around the country. Our next event is coming up, and we're heading to Scottsdale, Arizona. There's something truly magical about the power of these in-person connections where real-time breakthroughs happen. Picture this. You're surrounded by like-minded law firm owners tackling your business and mindset challenges together. The energy is electric, the insights are transformative, and the results are game-changing. Investing in yourself is the best decision you'll ever make. The knowledge, strategies, and breakthroughs you'll gain are priceless assets that will supercharge your practice and propel you forward. Join the Guild and secure your ticket to Scottsdale at the best possible price by visiting maxlawevents.com.
Run your law firm the right way. This is the Maximum Lawyer Podcast. Your hosts, Jim Hacking and Tyson Matrix. Let's partner up and maximize your firm. Welcome to the show.
You're back on the Maximum Lawyer Podcast. I'm Jim Hacking.
And I'm Tyson Matrix. Hey, Jimmy. 2018, man.
It's exciting. I think our listeners are going to be glad to hear from us. It hasn't been you and I on a show by ourselves for quite some time.
I don't know if excited is the right term for it, but I think that they may have some interest in hearing just from me and you. We've had a lot of guests coming on, and you had a really good idea that, it's just me and you for the first episode of the year. So I think that's a good idea. I think, it's been a really long time since you and I have jumped on here at the same time. And it's actually a long time since you and I have recorded, but just because we've had so many in the can. So I'm pretty excited about it. You want to talk a little bit about what's going on in just our podcast world, and then we'll kind of do the introduction of the topic of the week.
Yeah, I was surprised to see that the number of episodes that we've had is climbing, and the number of people that are joining our Facebook group is climbing. I think there's some really good discussions going on in the Facebook group, and it's encouraging to see. I think that it's sort of taken on a life of its own. We're getting to meet people, both those who we've had on as guests, and I had lunch with one of our buddies, Ryan, last week from Atlanta, one of our listeners. So it's become its own organic growing thing, and I think that's exciting.
Yeah, I think the greatest thing about this is we've done zero advertising. We haven't tried to monetize this. We haven't tried to make any money off of it, and people really like it. I don't know if these numbers hold up, but I'm pretty sure they do because I was looking at the numbers last week. I think our listeners are double what they were last year at this time. I'm pretty sure that that's accurate. So that's pretty awesome. I mean, the growth has been really cool. If you just look at a diagram of the growth of the number of listens and downloads, it's pretty awesome. It's pretty exciting. The engagement shows that people are listening, they're getting involved, they're sharing information. I think that's just awesome. I love seeing people share the information and get something out of it. I think it's just fantastic.
I think one of the things that helped the numbers grow is that idea you had a while back where you started posting some of the older episodes on Instagram. My intern, Kent Richardson, he's gone through and he's uploaded all of our podcast episodes into Meet Edgar. And Meet Edgar is pushing those out every 3 hours, an old episode. And so I don't know if you've seen it, but on my Twitter feed, I'm starting to get more engagement on Twitter thanks to that and thanks to our friends Mitch Jackson and Nick Rishwain, who are very generous in their retweets and sharing the love with their followers. That I really think that's led to a big increase. And we're getting a lot of lawyer engagements, and I think that's fun.
Yeah, I've definitely noticed it on Twitter. I'm not a big Twitter guy like you are. I will go on there occasionally. The reason why I go on Twitter is just to see what's trending, breaking news on Twitter, because it's just interesting because you can see what's trending. But I will check every time I'm on there just to see, if there's any mentions. And it's really interesting to see like how I've done absolutely nothing, but I'm getting mentioned on tweets. So I think it's kind of cool. And you're right. It's because what I was doing, I can't remember. I think I was just doing. Whenever I was sharing them on LinkedIn primarily is what I was doing because I had not been sharing that on that at all. And we definitely I only did the first 32 episodes, I think, and we saw a really strong increase in our numbers after that. I need to do the rest of them because we have a lot more after that. But it's just a different channel that people haven't been getting us through. So I think it's something very basic that we should have been doing all along. But it's, you and I just kind of started this as couple of guys talking, sharing ideas, and bringing guests on. So it's not like we've been really trying to promote ourselves that much on it. But I think that that's probably going to change in 2018. Not that we're going to try and make money off of this, but we're just going to try and promote it a little bit more to spread the love around.
Yeah, I think it's just a maturation process of the show. I think that you're right. We're not out to make a ton of money off this or anything, but I think that as the engagement grows and as the interest grows, thanks to our friend Larry Weinstein, we got listed in the top 100 podcasts, and I think that really helped give us a little boost and get some new listeners. And I think that just sort of where we're at now is we're starting to apply some of the things that we say law firms and lawyers should do to our own podcast. And so to take those lessons that we've learned of our law firms and applying them to the podcast, sort of gathering email addresses, regular content, sharing well on social, as Mitch teaches. I think those are the kinds of things that as we sort of head towards the end of our second year of podcasting, that we're really going to see this thing grow some more.
Yeah, and Larry, he definitely deserves the majority of the credit. There were other people that did submit, and so thank you to those people as well. And honestly, thanks to listeners just in general for spreading the word, because it's been spreading by word of mouth for the most part. I mean, the Cleveland contingency alone, they've spread the love quite a bit. And we have, literally listeners all over the world. I never would have imagined that. It's crazy to me just to see the number of listeners, the people around the world that are just getting involved in improving their practices. I think it's freaking awesome. But I want you to introduce the idea that we teased at the end of last year, and it sounds like we've got some interest, so we're going to do it. So you want to announce it?
Yeah, so we have decided to have our very first Max Law Conference here in St. Louis, the 18th in 2018. We're really excited about it. We have a great venue at the St. Louis University School of Law, which is our alma mater, and we've got the space dedicated, and we're starting to line up guest speakers, and it's going to be a great day and a half. It's going to go all day Thursday. We anticipate people coming in Wednesday night, and then we're going to catch a Cardinals game as a group. That's going to be an option for people that want to do that on Thursday night, and then we'll do a half day on Friday. We spent, I think, about 2 hours last Friday, you and I and Kent, the outline of the agenda and talking about our speakers and about the other things that we've got going on. So it's going to be a great event.
Yeah, and I just something that you and I were just sort of floating the idea on around this for a little bit, and kind of took off. And we've got some really good people that have agreed to speak. I don't think we want to release that list yet, but I think we've got some really good people that are going to present. I just want to make sure it's clear that people know we're not doing this to make money. This isn't the purpose of it. The purpose is to really just spread the word and get better and improve as attorneys. Because the truth of the matter is you and I probably won't make money at all off of it. It's probably going to be a losing venture for us. But I just want to make sure it's not something where we're trying to now capitalize on this. I think people need to know our original goals are staying the same. We are doing this just because, one, we just like doing it. We like spreading the love, and we like to learn and get better, and that's a big part of this. The big part of this is that you and I have just learned a tremendous amount from this and grown a tremendous amount from this, from the listeners and from the guests. So that's still the goal. Nothing's changed with that. And that's part of the reason why we've done our part to keep the cost as low as possible. We're going to try and keep this at a very, very low amount so people can afford to come. Because, we're all small firms for the most part. And so we want to keep this as affordable as possible so people can actually take part in it. And we'll also do our part with what we can to actually stream as much of it as we can. We won't be able to stream all of it, but hopefully we'll be able to stream some of it. So I'm pretty excited about it.
Yeah, and I think that it's going to be a nice blend. You and I have both been to John Fisher's mastermind experience, and that has such great value in sort of taking that time out of your practice to sort of go to a dedicated spot with other lawyers who want to win and to bounce ideas off of them. What we have planned is going to be a little bit different, and I think it's actually a nice complement to what John does in that we're going to have, sort of best practices. We're going to try to get former guests from the show and other industry leaders to talk about the things that they do best. And I think that it's just going to be an idea fest. I really think that the podcast and the Facebook group have become a little laboratory of practical best practices, if that makes sense. I sort of like that, practical best practices, because, so much of the ABA stuff, I think, is sort of stuff dedicated to big firms. And I think that one of the reasons our podcast has gotten the traction that it has is because, in a lot of ways, we're talking about things that we do ourselves, software that we use ourselves, procedures in the office that we use ourselves, things that we've really are tested and that we really have a good handle on. And for the most part, we never have a financial stake in the kinds of things that we're explaining to our listeners that we use. And so it really allows us to be sort of objective and fair. And Seth Price always reminds me of that the reason he likes our show is because, we don't have a big old agenda. And you're absolutely right that our goal, our marching orders for Kent is to break even. So if we break even or make a little on the back end to cover the expenses, you've been paying for the editing of this podcast for a year now. So if we could just sort of make that back, and we're going to get as much out of it as everybody else. And for us, it's just going to be fun to get everybody together, to see all of our friends and a lot of the people who we've talked to on the show. And I think it's just going to be a great time.
Yeah, and I'm glad you talked about it being a compliment to John Fisher's mastermind, because it really is. They're not the same at all. They're just a really good compliment. And with John's, it's a very intimate setting where you're really diving deep, and you're kind of talking about deep dark secrets that you're going through with your firm, and it's a very confidential environment. So what we're doing is different, but John's is really awesome event. Ours is going to be more of we were kind of talking about this. It's a mix between a conference and a workshop where we were chatting with William Media, and he was talking about how he really liked an event where he can take something away and actually apply those principles, and that's kind of what we're going to try for and shoot for. Ken has some pretty good ideas, and we've got some pretty good ideas on actually, breaking things down, and people can walk away with actually tangible things that they can actually use in their practices right away. And so I don't quite want to give those away yet, but we have some really cool ideas, I think, where people, whenever they leave St. Louis in May, they're going to hopefully really have gotten a lot out of it and take things that they're going to be able to use immediately, not down the road, not this, theoretical thing that they can use. It's an actual, they're going to be able to use these things that they've created or learned about during that 1.5 days. So I think it's going to be awesome. I'm really excited about it. I know we're going to learn a lot about it, and the guests that we've had agree to this point are just awesome. So pretty excited about it.
Yeah, I'm excited. I've already started working on one of my presentations, which is something that a lot of people have been asking us about, is sort of how we do our YouTube videos. So we're going to try to give some good instruction on that. And I think on the session you have planned and all of our guests, it's just going to be a really good time. Plus, we'll get to see some Cardinal baseball, and it'll be fun just to see everybody in May.
I can't remember. Who are they playing? Is it the Nationals?
It's the Philadelphia Phillies.
Oh, it's the Phillies. Okay, gotcha. So hopefully it'll still be a good ball game. I wish it was the Nationals, but it's still going to be a good game. So, all right, Jimmy, let's get rolling. You want to introduce what we're going to talk about this week?
Yeah, so now as we're steaming towards our 70th episode or so of the podcast, and it is the end of the year and the start of the new year, that we thought it might be a good idea to just check in on both of us, where our practices are, where we see things happening. I know we've made some changes here on our end, and you've made some changes too. So I thought that what we'd do is spend 5 or 10 minutes just interviewing each other and talking about where we're at and sort of just checking in on what we've learned since we started and all that kind of stuff.
Let's do it.
All right. So since we started this podcast, you've taken on a partner, and you've obviously expanded your practice. And I just think it'd be great for the group to hear sort of how that transition has gone. I know that you're a big systems guy, and we talk about that a lot on the show, sort of how that merging of two firms has gone.
Yeah, that's a good question. All right, so we've had a pretty big shift in the practice. One, we do 100% personal injury now. We've given up criminal defense completely. I still have some leftover cases that we're end up trying, probably 2 or 3 that will end up being trials. I already tried a couple of those this year, so I was around 5, and now I'm down to about 3. So giving up criminal completely. The dynamic of the firm is completely different. We've created divisions in the firm. We have a catastrophic loss department, CLD, and then we have what's called a missed division. So if you're a reptile fan, you know what that is, and that's more of the minor impact soft tissue injuries is really what it is. It's the lower end injuries. And so the idea is that, and going forward, we're hiring an associate to run the missed division, and Chris will be running the catastrophic loss department. So the goal is to have no more than 15 cases for Chris. They're all really big cases, and then the rest of them will be run through the MIS division. So that is a key difference in how I was doing things before, just because I didn't have the human power to really run the firm that way. But that was one of the benefits of actually merging, is actually being able to split the firm up that way. So we're in the process of trying to find someone to run that MIS division. So that's really interesting. We've had changes in staff where I had to do one of the most difficult things I've ever done. That's fire an employee. And what made it so difficult is that she hadn't done anything really wrong. She just wasn't the right fit anymore. So for the people that say, just get rid of them, it's easy to do, you're out of your mind. It's a really tough thing to do. So I had to let someone go. Someone's been with me for a couple of years, and it was just a tough decision, but it was a decision that had to be made and had to be done. So that's where we are with the firm, the basic firm setup with regards to how the firm has gone. So with systems, I will say that the systems has been by far the most challenging part of it. What has multiplied that difficulty was the fact that we got more cases than we anticipated, which is a good problem to have. But I'm not going to go over the actual numbers of what our goals were, but I'll just tell you this: we tripled the number of cases we wanted to bring in, which whenever you triple a goal, it causes strains on your firm that you don't really anticipate. So we had two separate sets of systems. So Chris was on TrialWorks, I was on Infusionsoft. And so having two separate firms merge into one firm, so you essentially have three firms, it's very difficult to merge those systems together. So whenever you are anticipating a potential merger or partnership, you have to take that stuff into consideration, which we did. It's something that we had anticipated, and we've spent a significant amount of time analyzing systems, looking at systems, and seeing what would be the best fit. And so what we've actually settled on is we are switching both of our firms over to Cloudlex, which we've already switched over, and we're using Infusionsoft on the back end to bolster it. And so what I'm actually doing is we're in the process of we're going to have a bridge basically built, an API, which I won't get into too many technical terms, but basically some of the automation will be done by Infusionsoft, and the actual housing of all the documents, of all the notes, and everything else, the case management system will be Cloudlex. And if you've not heard of it or not used it, that's actually pretty awesome. And when I say it's completely cloud-based, it's completely cloud-based. All of the documents are stored inside of Cloudlex, and it's not one of these things where these other services where they take and they house the documents in like Google Drive or Dropbox. They're actually housed inside of Cloudlex. And so you're editing the documents inside of Cloudlex. You're viewing the documents inside of Cloudlex. For example, a lot of these services, whenever you are editing a Word document, you have to download it, edit the document, and then re-upload it. It's not like that. They've got an agreement with Microsoft Office where you can actually edit it right there, kind of like Google Docs works. Pretty awesome system. We really like it. And we're going to be able to really monitor and track our cases much better through it. So systems, it's still been a struggle just because our basic systems are still there, but we're having to recreate them in a new system, if that makes sense. So it's been a challenge, but it's my advice to anyone that is merging or partnering with another firm. It's just patience. You have to anticipate these things. You have to anticipate these changes, which we did. We knew this was going to be a long process. We're only 7 months in, and we anticipated this. So we didn't fully expect to be completely integrated for a year. So we are still ahead of schedule. We've got the new system in place. It's just now a matter of implementing a lot of those things. So that's where I am, Jimmy. I know that was a very long-winded response, but I think it was necessary, and I'm sure I left out a bunch of stuff.
Where's your mind at now? How are you feeling? How do you look at the future? What are your current thoughts on where Mutrux Finney is headed? I'm
extremely optimistic when it comes to the firm. I will tell you, I'm just really stressed out because of the fact that we are operating essentially three firms. And that's just because of the way our agreement was between the two of us. We're wrapping up the old stuff and everything new is going into the new firm. And so even though we have one big umbrella, we're technically operating as three firms in a way, and so that makes it a little difficult. And you're trying to wrap up cases and work on the new cases, and while we are still trying to get things to fall into place, it gets a little stressful. And it's weird. Just the most stressful thing has been the success we've had with the cases we've gotten, because we really have. I'm not trying to toot our own horn, but we've gotten some really good cases, and they're in our pipeline, and so it's trying to make sure we keep our clients happy. it's on top of our mind all the time. And so I think it makes things a little stressful. But I mean, Chris and I will tell you, I mean, we're elated as to how the firm is done. And I can honestly tell you, we are both very optimistic as to the future of the firm, just because the way things are falling into place, the response we've had from our referral partners, things like that. We're really excited about it.
That's fantastic.
Yes, it is.
So how is your role going to fit in? How are you going to be, if Chris is going to be trying the big cases and you're going to hire an associate to do the missed cases, where do you see your role in things?
So it's interesting. So that's a good question. And I think most firms will have this, like, this is my case to try. I'm going to try this case. This is your case to try. This is your case. We are switching to a trial team model where we are actually trying these cases as teams instead of trying them individually. And so, for example, we will have, once our complete goal has really been fulfilled, where we have set the firm up the way we want it to be, we will have someone that just does liability experts and someone that just does medical experts, things like that. And so it'll be broken down like that. So we will be trying these cases in full and complete teams. So I will still be having a role when it comes to actually trying the cases. Now, Chris will be taking the lead on these larger cases, and on some of the smaller cases, I may take the lead on some of the smaller ones, and some of the bigger ones I may, that are still my cases, I will probably remain the lead on those as well. But I think that the main thing that people need to know is we are trying these things as teams now. But again, part of that my role when it comes to day-to-day is going to be I'm going to be stepping back a little bit when it comes to actually the day-to-day of handling these cases. I wouldn't really call myself a CEO, but it'd be more of that role where I step out and I'll be sort of taking care of the firm as a whole, making sure things are moving in the right direction. And so that my role in that will really change quite a bit, which I'm excited about, because that means I'm not going to be handling all these day-to-day phone calls. Have we sent the demand yet? Or my medical records yet? I'm trading. I won't be handling those calls like I am now. So that's where we're headed. I will be stepping more, kind of like Craig Goldenfarb in a way, where Craig Goldenfarb is, he's like a CEO of his company, and he's got a bunch of attorneys working for him and doing a lot of that work. That's kind of the way we're headed. Not in the same way, not the same setup, but in a very similar manner.
That also sounds fantastic, and I know that's where you wanted to be headed.
I want to talk about the importance of having a good partner and having the right fit. And this would not work without the right partner. And the fact that he and I have the same vision is very important. And so that's what has allowed this to happen. Chris and I had a very long phone call one day where we were just talking about vision. And I don't know how it really came up, but I think I just said, you know what, like, I'm going to have to start stepping, outside of the day-to-day stuff. And I could tell he was really relieved to hear that, because I think that's what he wanted me to do. And it just took me some time to really accept that in a way. So, he and I have been talking for a very long time about this and really setting this up the right way. And so the fact that he and I have agreed to that and have the same vision is very, very important. So if you're thinking about partnering and you're having that conversation with other people, those are the types of things you have to be comfortable with, and those are the things that your partner has to be comfortable with. So yeah, I definitely think you should think those things through.
All right, I have one last question for you, and it's one that you often ask our guests, and that is, what's your biggest struggle or headache right now? Yeah,
that is actually one of my favorite questions, because you do learn quite a bit from it. Right now, it's the migration of documents, not the actual data, but the actual documents from Google Drive over to CloudLex. If you have a system like TrialWorks, it's not easy, but it's easier because they can do the migration for you. When it comes to, because we were using Infusionsoft with a combination of Google Drive, they were able to migrate the data very easily, but they were not able to migrate the documents. And so for all the documents and the files we have, we're having to download as a zip drive each one of those files and then re-upload them into CloudLex, which is very time consuming. So that is my biggest struggle right now. And I've actually think I've systemized that to where the point I'm going to hire a virtual assistant to finish it up, but I had to really figure it out myself first how to do it. And so in the coming weeks, that's what we're going to be doing. We have someone right now that does medical summaries, Gulshan. He's very, very good. I think what I'm going to do, I talked to him earlier today. I think he's probably going to fulfill that need going forward, but again, I had to figure it out first. So that's my biggest struggle. You ready to go now?
I am ready, brother.
All right, so give us an idea of where you are. You've added since we started, your wife has come on board. You've had a lot of changes. People leave, people come. You have a team of interns now. marketing has changed. You're changing systems. So give us a rundown of how you're doing.
Yeah, so 2018 brings a lot of exciting changes to the old hacking law practice. We're really excited. We set our goal early in the year last year to try and hit 365 cases because it looked like we were opening about one a day. And I am sad to report that we ended up 4 short. So we ended up with 361. So it was up from 249 the year before. So it was a big increase without much increase in staff. My wife had been on by that point last year. So it was a lot of growth for us. And when I went to John Fisher's mastermind group in Chicago, I had a couple of goals. And one goal was to get my own personal caseload beneath 100 cases. And so I have succeeded with that. And so I'm handling a lot less cases, and I'm not taking very many new cases at all. The only exception to that are the lawsuit cases that really only I can do, and those only last 3 or 4 months. So other than that, I'm really farming out a lot of the work to my wife, Amani, and to Andrew, our associate. So that's been...
Hey, can I stop you right there? I will let you finish, but I cannot let this go because it's just driving me crazy. It's like fingernails on a chalkboard. You just said something that you tell people, and I tell people all the time, that it's not true. You said it's the only thing you can do. Why is it the only thing you can do?
Well, that's a good point. It's because all the marketing and everything about the lawsuit. I mean, Andrew's never filed a federal lawsuit, and Amani hasn't been in federal court in 20 years or 18 years. So in theory, other people can do it. And I have automated a lot of the production of the lawsuit and service and everything. But yeah, that's definitely something that I could give up more of. But what I'm saying is right now I'm the only one who knows how to do those. So everything but those I'm giving to everybody else. So I see what you're saying, and it's a point well taken. I didn't mean to drag my fingernails across the chalkboard, but I consider myself duly slapped on the wrist. So I'm sorry for that.
All right, continue on. My apologies. Continue on.
It's all good. It's a good point and a good learning lesson. So one was to get my caseload down, which we've done. Another was to try to hit my numbers on the cases. And the other one was when I went to the mastermind, everyone was shocked that, believe it or not, Tyson, you'll die when I tell you this. So when we do a set of forms, we do them manually. So we download the latest form off of the internet and we prepare it from USCIS's website anew every single time. So that means that if you're submitting a case with 6 sets of forms that somebody's typing in James O'Hacking III, 10900 Manchester Road on every form, plus all the client's information. So the other big change that we've made is, I've been banging my head for 3 years, convinced that I could build an immigration law practice on the backs of Infusionsoft. And we've decided to finally concede that battle. And what we've done is we've signed up with Clio for our during unit. So we're still going to use Infusionsoft to supplement Clio, and specifically with the marketing in the before unit and in the follow-up after unit. But for the during unit, we're going all in on Clio. And the reason we picked Clio is because it has an API that allows it to interface with another company that was created by an immigration attorney, a guy named James from Holland, Michigan, and he has built on top of Clio a way to do all the immigration forms. So we've started doing our forms now where you fill all the information into a database once, and then it prepares all the forms once the data is in there properly. So never again will I have to, or any of us have to prepare forms from scratch. So to scale that many cases that quickly without any new software, because the software is just coming online right now, was really hard and tiring. And so I think that with this new software, we're going to be able to increase our efficiency. We're going to be able to cut down on our mistakes. And so we're really excited about that.
It's really interesting that you weren't already, since you were using Kelsey, that you weren't already using something like WebMerge. I think it's WebMerge, where when you automate the documents, it'll actually fill in those fillable PDFs. That's really interesting to me that you weren't doing that before. And I am actually shocked that you were manually having to go to the website, download it, and then implement or forms, because I can only imagine. Did you have a lot of human error with those forms?
We had some, but the reason for that, the main problem that we had was that USCIS on their forms creates a barcode that changes for each letter or thing that you type into the form. It has this master barcode at the bottom that they scan in when you send them the paper form. So we could have used Webform or something else to create the PDFs, but it wouldn't have had that barcode, which means USCIS couldn't have read them. And so this guy that we've partnered up with through Clio, he has cracked that code. I don't know how he did it. We were literally calling Adobe trying to figure out how to do it. And I just said, look, why am I trying to recreate this thing that's already out there? And that's sort of why we shifted out. We always thought that we could crack that Adobe PDF code, but we weren't able to. And that's really one of the reasons why we were sort of slow to adopt Clio.
Really incredible. Wow, nice.
All right, so on the social media side, I've been really excited to have Kent working with us for the last 2 months. We've got our first content calendar. We are using Meet Edgar a lot to push out all of our content, not just for Maximum Lawyer, but also for the firm. We've got it set up now so that when I put up a new YouTube video, it then puts it into Meet Edgar for later dissemination. And for those of you who don't know, Meet Edgar is a thing where you can preload all of your tweets and your social media posts, LinkedIn, Facebook, all that stuff, and then it'll just do it sort of on a calendar. It sort of does a round robin where it picks up posts and reposts them, and you can make it as detailed as you want. It's a pretty great thing, and so we've really boosted that. He's really helped me with my podcast. He edits it, the audio podcast, the new one, which is the Immigration Answers Show, and so I really have very little to do with that other than to record it. We've also been digging into our YouTube analytics, and I think that when we meet in May and show everybody what we've been up to, we're going to knock everybody's socks off. But I basically haven't added much YouTube content for the last 5 or 6 weeks, and in those 5 or 6 weeks, we have 300 new subscribers to our YouTube channel. So it's sort of crazy. So now we're going all in on YouTube. We're going to rip the audio off the YouTube to do the podcasts. We're going to do less emphasis on the podcast, and we're going to do more emphasis on YouTube. We're going to follow Mitch Jackson's advice to supplement our in-studio YouTube videos with a lot more handheld iPhone-type videos, because I posted one from Tampa about 2 months ago, and it already has a couple thousand views. So it's really crazy what those, small smartphone videos have done. So we're sort of all in on YouTube and videos in particular.
Yeah, I hope people are listening to that point, because it's, everyone's trying to sell you, polished videos and everything else. It's not how it is. The most watched and listened to videos are the ones that are rough around the edges. So quit trying to polish up your videos. I think that's a great point.
Yeah, and then procedure-wise, we had our firm retreat where we shut down the office for a full day, and we all got together away from the office, and we came up with our tagline. We're working on our mission statement, but our tagline and our focus, it sounds very simple. It's only 4 words, and it does sound a little bit like the plaintiff's personal injury stuff, but I think when you drill down to it, it sort of summarizes exactly what our mindset is, as distinguished from a lot of immigration attorneys. Here it is. It's we fight for immigrants. We fight for immigrants. And so we're working with Joey Vitale to trademark that. We're going to start putting it on all of our marketing stuff, and we think it sort of shows our team approach. It shows our mindset, where a lot of people just try to get along with immigration, and we view immigration as a full blood sport, just like litigation, and we bring sort of that litigator's mindset to immigration, where we're not coming hat in hand, but instead we're just ready to kick them in the teeth and go from there. And so I think that we're going to have a lot of fun implementing that over the course of the next year.
How did you come up with that? What was the process you used?
Well, we listed sort of the strengths that we felt about our firm, the things that the attributes, the things that made us different. And, one is, obviously all we do is immigration. So, we fight for immigrants, and we only fight for immigrants. So that's where that comes from. Fighting is sort of, I had a lot of not violent words, but sort of forceful, impactful words. And fight was the one that just sort of we distilled down to. And then we is really because we use a team approach, and we're really collaborative here, and we really try to talk about our cases together with each other. And, most immigration attorneys, for the most part, practice by themselves. And so the we is sort of the fact that we have 3 attorneys and, 4 or 5 support staff. And so I think that sort of telegraphs and summarizes what we're after.
I'm interested. So the thing that you and I subscribed to a while ago with Jim Manning, the Chet Holmes International stuff, do you implement any of that stuff in your little getaways, or I guess is this just stuff that you're coming up with on your own?
Yeah, so we did use some of the stuff from Chet Holmes. In fact, the team has all read the first 4 or 5 chapters of it, and we've been going over those chapters. What we do when we have our retreats each time, and this is really one of our most instructive things that I think we got from Chet, was we ask, sort of, what should we stop doing? What should we keep doing? And what should we do better? That took up an hour and a half, 2 hours of the day, and that's what we start off with every time. I gave a little history of the firm, which was fun because we're on our 10-year anniversary this year. And so I sort of gave a little history starting back from when I wanted to start the firm and why I started the firm. And, you forget that a lot of people who are new don't really know those stories. So to hear these stories of, the struggles that Adele and I had when we were in a little office the size of my current office, and it was just she and I, and the phone would ring and she'd say, hold on, I'll get you Mr. Hacking. And she'd put him on hold and she'd say across the room, Jim, the phone's for you. And so I'd pick it up, so to hear where we've come from, handling, maybe 40 cases that first year to handling as many as we're handling now with a team of like 7 people. It's fun for them to hear that. And then we just segued from that right into the questions that I talked about just a minute ago.
All right. So we're getting close to time. Well, actually, we're well past time, but we'll sort of wrap this thing up. So I guess, what are your goals for 2018?
I'm a member of Mitch Jackson's Legal Minds Mastermind Group, and Mitch asked us from the beach on a video to describe what our one word is for 2018. And it's funny, when you asked me that, I lost it momentarily and I had to go look it back up, but it's process. So for me, it's process. That's what we're focused on this year. We're really going to drill down on the during unit, trying to handle around the same amount of cases or maybe some more cases through greater and increased efficiency, having that database of our clients' data and not having to reinvent the wheel for each and every case. That's really what our main goal is. And along those lines, I sat down, I put a post up on the group Sunday about sort of what our KPIs, our key performance indicators, are going to be for the year. I don't know if you got a chance to see that, but I had fun. I have all that data spread out in all these different places, but this month we're certainly going to try at least for 1 month to see what happens when we gather all the data about our webpage, our phones, our processes, our caseload. We're really going to try to have that all in one area and then sort of see where that leads, what information can be gleaned from that. And I'm really excited about sort of having all that in one place.
I like it. Just so you know, and I don't know where you were going to put it, but there is a cool service called Clipfolio. It's an app and a website, and it's Clipfolio with a K. I talked about it before on the podcast. It's a very cool way of putting it on a dashboard, and it's just in case you want to visualize it, like on a computer or something like that, you can easily do that with a Clipfolio. So that's a good way of doing it. But all right, let's wrap things up here, and before we get to our tips and our hacks of the week, I do want to remind everybody to go to the Facebook page, get involved in the discussion. People sharing really good ideas on there, so and presenting problems that they've got. And I think that's great as a community when we're able to help each other out. That's fantastic. But also, go to wherever you get your podcast, whether it's iTunes or Stitcher or somewhere else. Give us a 5-star review if you like this podcast, especially if you've listened on this one to this point. You probably do. So if you don't mind just taking a couple minutes at the end of this and just giving us a review, and also subscribe to the podcast. I think that may help us. So, Jimmy, what is your hack of the week?
Before I get to my hack of the week, let me just say that I enjoyed it just being you and I. I love having our guests, and we have some good guests lined up for upcoming episodes. But I do really enjoy these. When I listen to I Love Marketing with Dean Jackson and Joe Polish, I'm always most excited about when those two get together and talk, because I think a lot of time you just end up hearing from their guests. And so this was fun for me to be together with you today.
Yeah, I enjoyed it too. It's fun whenever you and I are on here and we can go back and forth. And, we don't have to be as stuffy with a guest. A lot of times we have, questions we ask the guests that, it's a little more formal, but you and I can have a little more banter back and forth. So I have a lot of fun with it.
All right. And so remember, I also wanted to start mentioning some of our reviews of our podcast. And so I'm going to read one of the new ones that we got. And it's from our friend Ryan McKean. He gives it 5 stars, calls it the best. I both consume and produce a lot of law business content. This is the only podcast in the genre that I subscribe to. There's gold in these episodes. So that's really nice from Ryan.
Well, that is really nice. And Ryan, I'll tell you what, Ryan is just a very generous person with his time, and a really good guy. So, I encourage you to reach out to Ryan and say hi to him. And he's just a wealth of information.
Yeah, and I got to meet him last week. We had lunch together, so that was great. And so, without further ado, my hack of the week. I listened to the Tim Ferriss's podcast off and on. I don't always listen to it, but there was an episode a couple weeks ago with a former NFL player named Terry Crews. It's a 2-hour chat that they had in New York City, and we'll put a link to it in the show notes. It was terrific, and I think that as we move into the new year and we talk about looking at our life and our goals, it's really an amazing episode because you get to hear from Tim and you get to hear from Terry. It was great. And in that episode, they recommended a short little book by a fellow Missouri native, Dale Carnegie. I didn't know that Dale was from Missouri. But Dale has another book, not How to Win Friends and Influence People, but it's How to Stop Worrying and Start Living. And I'm about halfway through it. It's a short read, but it's a great book. It's dated, but the examples and the ideas on how to just sort of let go of worry, living in the moment, and focusing on the things that you can change. It's a great book. So I recommend both those things.
The Stop Worrying one, it was recommended by someone else, either on our Facebook group or John Fisher's Mastermind Experience, one of the two. And I have it on my queue. I just haven't started reading it yet. So it's one of those ones where it must be a good book. Multiple people have recommended it. So I'm going to check it out and finally actually read it. All right. So my tip of the week, since this is a new year, it's 2018, first episode of the year, mine is going to be going back to the basics. And here's what I want you to do. I already sent out one of mine this week. I want you to sit down, take 10 pieces of paper out, write 10 letters to 10 people, and tell them how much you appreciate whatever they have done for you in 2017. That's it. That's all my tip is. Sit down and just tell them, how maybe they've changed your life, how they've helped you out, how they've made you happy, whatever it may be. Sit down, write those 10 letters. It can be to a referral partner. It can be to your wife, your husband. It can be to a friend, whatever it may be. Just sit down and write that letter. And even if it's just a blank piece of paper and write on there, it doesn't have to be anything special. It doesn't have to be a card. Just do that. And just think about how that may affect you if you were to receive that from someone. And I think that if you really think about it, you understand how much of an impact you're going to have on that person or those people whenever they get those letters. So send out your letters, and I think you're going to be able to make a positive impact on someone else's life. So my tip of the week, man.
That's a great tip, but don't expect to get any letters from me because you never help me, so I won't be sending you any letters.
That's the deal. That's the deal. So I send you plenty of letters and articles in the mail, so I don't think you're going to get anything from me either, but I'll send it to 9 other people. All right, man. Well, it's a good episode. I'm looking forward to 2018.
Happy New Year, Tyson.
You too, bud. See you later.
Thanks for listening to the Maximum Lawyer Podcast. To stay in contact with your hosts and to access more content, go to MaximumLawyer.com. Have a great week and catch you next time.